You know, when there's delicious food in front of you, it becomes quite a challenge to film a video. Hi there, this is Josh from Literary Gladiators. I just wanted to introduce something new to the BookTube community, mixing two things that I most truly love: books and cheese. Cheese is just such a heavenly gift that God gave to us through cows, goats, sheep, especially sheep. They make the best cheese. But anyhow, the way that the cheese book tag works is I have a list of 12 cheeses, or 12 types of cheese, and a description, and then the description will associate with both the cheese and the book that I mentioned. Out of the 12, I have 9 of the books with me. The others I had either borrowed or sold because they weren't as good, or just sold them or placed them somewhere. But then I'm going to tell you my 5 favorite cheeses and tag some people to follow along. Okay. First one is processed cheese, which comes in the form of American cheese, Velveeta. There are other forms, but this is either a book that you see as a guilty pleasure or a book that is renowned but you feel is overrated. For me, I'm going to do the latter because processed cheese is not my thing. And the one that I chose for that is Julie and Julia by Julie Powell. From reviews that I have read on BarnesandNoble.com, Amazon.com, and on Goodreads, the book itself is not necessarily acclaimed. I feel the only reason that the movie was pretty good was because Meryl Streep did quite a good job as Julia Child. The story of Julie Powell was not really convincing. Sure that we're all bloggers and vloggers trying to make our way, but it's not really in a relatable way. And I only gave it 2 stars out of 5. So, and she was also a judge on Iron Chef America. That seems to be the success that she has achieved, but still not buying it. Next one is Emmentaler, and this is a book with too many holes through the plot. Actually, the holes are called eyes. That's a fun fact about cheese. Emmentaler is the original version of what we refer to in America as Swiss cheese. They also have a type in Ireland, Australia, New Zealand has a Swiss cheese, but the one I chose, I also do not have that with me, and it is Cat Magic by Whitley Strieber. I felt that they introduced 2 different stories. The first one is this mad scientist and his experiments with resurrection. And then the second part is the Wiccan end of it and how things become really paganist, and they just dismissed the first part completely and did what I saw was a not very good job with the second part. It was so bad that it was the first book that I've ever read that I gave 0 out of 5 stars. They don't have that option on Goodreads, but I will deny stars when it comes to books if I really want to. Did that 4 times. But next one is Mozzarella, or Mozzarella, and that is a book that is rightfully renowned. And the one that I chose, John Steinbeck's East of Eden. East of Eden is a retelling of the book of Genesis about 2 brothers, Charles and Adam. Adam moves out to California with a prostitute. She gives birth to 2 boys. They eventually are named Caleb and Aaron, also known as Cal, and Aaron with 1 A. And he also lives with a servant named Lee, who is Chinese. But East of Eden is the book that pretty much, it was the gateway to me becoming a Steinbeck lover. I do plan on picking up The Grapes of Wrath again, and I really want to read more of his work. Next one is Sharp Cheddar, a book that is great despite sparking a sudden reaction, which could be a reaction of fury, a reaction of fear, a reaction of sadness. It may have made you cry, or a punch in the gut like it did to me. My choice, Cujo by Stephen King. Cujo is the rabid Saint Bernard that goes after and kills his victims. That the story really, he was such a terrifying creature that left me on the edge of the seat, and then by the end it was, I felt like I had that punch in the gut linger around for hours upon end, and the story was quite emotional, especially in the novel. It was probably, until I read The Shining, the second scariest, only behind Pet Sematary. Next one is Muenster, which is a book that should not be judged by its cover or face value. My choice is Dr. Rat by William Kotzwinkle. He also wrote a series known as Walter the Farting Dog. But I found Dr. Rat at a used bookstore where everything was half price. It looked like the one that was the cheapest. It really necessarily didn't stick out, but the message is really strong. It's the equivalent to Animal Farm in a laboratory. It has to do with this eccentric Dr. Rat who defends human pursuit for animal experimentation, and he spreads his message through these parables, these jingles per se, and this is all going on when the animals decide to rebel against the experimentation. I had it actually on my top 10 list in 2011. It was number 9. And you may really think that it's immoral, but once you get the gist of it, it really sticks around in a quirky kind of way. Next one is Parmigiano Reggiano, which is a book that is the complete package, as Parmigiano Reggiano is often deemed the king of all cheeses. I'm actually choosing the novel that I consider to be my favorite, and that is Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. I actually got it as a Christmas gift from my parents. One of the best pair-ups that I had come across. Has to do with a mentally challenged man named Charlie Gordon, who has the opportunity to go through a procedure that they tried on a mouse named Algernon, and it works with him, but as it says on the back of the book, it begins to deteriorate. Algernon begins to deteriorate, and Charlie may very well be next. But the brilliant thing about Flowers for Algernon is that the point of view that they take, the fact that there's a story told in Charlie's diary or in his journal that is told in a very accurate way for someone like Charlie, and then also tell the story from somebody looking in, was just incredible. If you haven't read Flowers for Algernon, I strongly suggest that you pick it up and read it. I definitely am looking to have that as an episode on our show in the future. Next one is Feta, which is a book that leaves its mark, and my choice is Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. The fact that it has to do with the possibility of censoring society by burning books, which are the crucial set in stone source of information. And just look at the tablet and the ebook and what that's doing, and how that is trying to shrink away the book. So that would be the book that really leaves me thinking, and that was actually I reread it last year and really liked it the second time. Next one is Roquefort, which is a book that you feel deserves greater recognition. And my choice is Jacob von Gutten by Robert Walser. Robert Walser is just an underrated genius. He is a Swiss author, and the book has to do with the title character going to a servant school, and the only class that's there is how a boy must behave. And teachers spend most of the time in their lounge sleeping, and it's pretty much them having to figure things out for themselves. You may start to think what's going on, but when all is said and done, you will really feel refreshed, and you'll really get a spectacular message. Next one is Asiago, which is a book that was beyond your expectations. And my choice is John Grisham's The Innocent Man, Murder and Injustice in a Small Town. I mentioned this in the writer's birthday book tag, and it has to do with a man named Ron Williamson, who is accused of and then sentenced to death for a murder, and he's ultimately 11 years later, after a drastic experience in prison, deemed as being innocent. I didn't know what to expect, but after reading that, I was really... the fact that truth is stranger than fiction really rings true. The next one is Hauda, which is often considered, which is also called Gouda. But this is a book that was a lighthearted delight. It may be a very absurdist choice, but my choice is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. Just the imagery and the quirkiness of Alice making her way through Wonderland, through the ideas that you may be thinking, what's going on? How can this be true? And then you think much deeper and start to question, how can our society be deemed as true? But at the same time, it's just very, very enjoyable. I really had quite the experience reading it, and really something to study. The next one is Limburger, which is a book that proved to be too much to endure. Of course, there are probably people that enjoy eating Limburger cheese, but I have not had it. I just know that it has that odor to it. And something that proved to be too much to endure for me is Irvine Welsh, If You Like School, You'll Love Work. And this is the only book that I've ever put down with no intention of returning to it. There are just these really out-of-the-ordinary stories. There's one about rattlesnakes where a guy gets bit in an uncomfortable spot, and his friend, who is male, has to get the stinger out. And because the male is homosexual, it is a delight for him, which a little bit too much. It's perfectly acceptable, but I think the way that they approached it, it was not very, it was just not very pleasant, and also a little bit discriminatory. But The Dogs of Lincoln Park has to do with a woman who lives in an apartment, Korean chef moves in, and the dog goes missing. You can figure out the rest. It was just too much for me. Not necessarily the dialect, but the way that he talked and the overuse of the dreaded C word. I just didn't like it. I would strongly recommend skipping it. And the last one is Brie, which is a book that gives you that warm, mushy feeling. And the one I chose is Cause and Effect, The Healing Power of Dogs by Sharon Saxon. I don't have the book on me, but when I read it, it was quite the experience. It's these multiple stories about how dogs had these remarkable, moving experiences with people. There was how they. There were stories from the military. There were stories about their interactions with children. How one dog comforted a crying little kid who was really uncomfortable at one point in time after getting hurt. There was also Zoloex Kuntley, who served as a hot, like one of those warm bottles that you put to your side so that it relieves the pain. But it was just a moving book, and I strongly suggest that you check it out. And my 5 favorite cheeses, which, if this is the cheese book tag, why don't we include some cheese talk in here too? My choices for 5 favorite cheeses: Pecorino Romano, probably my all-time favorite. Pecorino Tartufo, which is a pecorino with truffle in it. Parmigiano Reggiano, king of all cheeses. Asiago, and Manchego, which is all a Spanish sheep cheese, which the pecorino cheeses are also sheep milk. As Max McCalman said, the goats make the best milk, the cows make the best butter, and the sheep make the best cheese. I absolutely agree with him, 110%. Now it's time for me to tag some people. I would encourage you to tag 5 people. Because this is the first and original, I'm going to tag 10. My choices: Gemma from Aussie Bookworm, Sam from Novels and Nonsense, Chris from Chris Vigilante Reads, Margaret from Margaret Book Lover, Brandon from Books and Beer, Amy from the Dusky Bookshelf, Jen from Bookish Book Brain Cup Letter, Mike from Literary Exploration, Angela from Reading in the Rain, and Hannah from Craving Books. Now I'll get to my very own cheese that I brought with me today, Pecorino Tartufo. If you haven't tried this, definitely check this out. This is extraordinary. And keep reading.